President Trump threatens network licenses after Jimmy Kimmel slams MAGA on air.
All they do is hit Trump. They're licensed. They're not allowed to do that.
This morning, a fight over comedy, power, and free speech. Plus, Kennedy's CDC panel changes the rules. Why children now get 2 shots instead of 1. And the man accused of killing his 3 daughters in the Pacific Northwest found dead, where searchers tracked him down. The stories that matter, clear and credible, from across the country to around the world. These are your unbiased updates from Straight Arrow News.
They give me only bad publicity for press. I mean, they're getting a license. I would think maybe their license should be taken away.
Good morning, I'm Craig DeGrelli. We begin this morning with controversial comments from President Donald Trump following ABC's decision to suspend Jimmy Kimmel Live indefinitely. The president now suggesting TV networks that criticize him could lose their broadcast licenses. The comments come just a day after Trump praised ABC for pulling Kimmel off the air, following on-air jokes and suggestions about Charlie Kirk's assassination. Trump calling it courageous and urging other networks to follow suit, naming CBS, NBC, and late-night hosts Stephen Colbert, Jimmy Fallon, and Seth Meyers, calling them, quote, total losers. On Thursday, Trump doubled down during a press gaggle aboard Air Force One.
That's something that should be talked about for licensing, too. When you have a network and you have evening shows and all they do is hit Trump, that's all they do. If you go back, I guess they haven't had a conservative on in years or something, somebody said. But when you go back and take a look, all they do is hit Trump. They're licensed. They're not allowed to do that. They're an arm of the Democrat Party.
Meanwhile, late-night hosts rallied around Kimmel Thursday night, defending their colleague and calling out what they see as a dangerous attack on free speech.
We saw the dismissal of a very well-known chat show host in America last night, Mr. Kimmel. Is free speech more under attack in Britain or America?
How dare you, sir! What outfit are you with, sir? The Antifa Herald Tribune?
That is blatant censorship.
Donald Trump is on his way back from a trip to the United Kingdom where he was met with protests, while back here at home, his administration is pursuing a crackdown on free speech. And completely unrelated, I just want to say before we get started here that I've always admired and respected Mr. Trump.
Yeah, a lot of people are worried that we won't keep saying what we want to say or that we'll be censored. But I'm going to cover the president's trip to the UK just like I normally would. During the trip, protesters managed to project images onto the sides of Windsor Castle of Trump standing next to his good friend, Jeff Goldblum. Even though his administration still insists that he's not in the Goldblum file.
On its website, the FCC states that licenses are granted to stations that serve the needs and problems of their local communities, and most licensees are required to document how they're meeting those standards. Big news this morning from out west, nearly 4 months after a Washington state man vanished during a weekend custody visit, leaving his 3 daughters dead. Investigators believe they have found his remains. Deputies say human remains were discovered in a remote wooded area near Leavenworth, not far from where Travis Decker was last seen. Personal items found nearby point to him, though DNA testing is underway. Decker had taken his 3 daughters, 5-year-old Olivia, 8-year-old Evelyn, and 9-year-old Peyton, who you see here, on a camping trip over Memorial Day weekend. When he failed to return them, a search began. The girls were later found dead in a rural embankment, their bodies covered with plastic bags. Decker, an Army veteran with survivalist skills, disappeared, sparking a wide manhunt across rough terrain. Authorities believed he may have been living off the grid in the Cascade Wilderness. A major shakeup could be looming inside one of the country's most high-profile federal prosecutors' offices. According to ABC News, President Trump is expected to fire Eric Siebert, the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, after his office reportedly found no grounds to charge New York Attorney General Letitia James with mortgage fraud. Sources tell ABC that Trump officials pushed for charges anyway, but Siebert refused and has now been told he's out. Trump has long accused James of going after him in New York for political reasons. She led the civil fraud case that resulted in a nearly $500 million penalty, later tossed on appeal, though the fraud ruling stood. Siebert's firing raises serious questions about political retaliation, with Trump already under fire for what critics call a broader retribution campaign targeting rivals like Adam Schiff and Fed Governor Lisa Cook. Siebert had only been in the role since January, overseeing cases tied to terrorism, espionage, and public corruption. The CDC's new vaccine advisory panel has made a controversial call, pushing back the recommended age for the combined MMRV vaccine, which protects against measles, mumps, rubella, and chickenpox. In a 7-3 vote, the CDC Advisory Committee said Thursday the combined MMRV shot should not be given before the age of 4. That's a shift from current practice, where toddlers typically receive it starting at 12 months. Instead, children under 4 are now advised to get 2 separate shots, one for MMR, one for varicella. The reason? A slightly higher risk for febrile seizures, a scary but usually harmless side effect when the combo shot is given to younger toddlers. But critics say this was not about science. The panel, recently overhauled by Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., made the vote before all data was even presented. The vote now goes to the CDC director for final approval, though historically that's a formality. The panel meets again today to take up COVID and hepatitis B guidance. Ukraine may be thousands of miles away, but the war there continues to reshape how the world thinks about weapons, innovation, and recovery. Our weapons and warfare team is on the ground right now in Lviv, a city now seen as both a hub for defense tech and healing. Here's a dispatch from our correspondent Ryan Robertson in Ukraine.
Hey, Craig. So we are in Ukraine's 7th largest city, Lviv. We came out here to cover a defense expo. It's called the Brave One Defense Tech Valley 2025. The expo brought in around 6,000 people from 40 different countries. We're all coming in to learn how to develop more weapons, develop the kind of autonomous weapons that the armies and navies and air forces are going to need, to fight the next battles that they might have to fight. So Ukraine is kind of at the forefront right now of so much innovation and technology that the rest of the world is really kind of recognizing the Ukrainian expertise in this area. However, we weren't just here to cover a defense expo. We also went around the city and talked to a lot of different people. We were at a rehab facility called Unbroken. Lviv is kind of positioning itself as one of the foremost places to go for rehabilitation and therapy for veterans or civilians who have been wounded in the fighting. So we talked to some of those folks. We also saw some areas of town that were hit recently, about a month ago, by some Shahed drones. Just seeing the destruction on those buildings in a completely residential area just really kind of brings home how close this war is to everyone in the country, even if the front lines are hundreds of miles away. So over the next few weeks, Straight Arrow News audience, keep an eye out for all the content that we have coming your way. But in the meantime, we'll send it back to you, Craig.
All right, Ryan Robertson for us on a fascinating assignment, really. That's just a glimpse of what the team is seeing on the ground. In the coming days, you will find more in-depth reporting and original videos from Ukraine right here at Straight Arrow News. Finally today, we're taking a look at what you had to say on some of the biggest stories of the week. This is straight from you. Your questions, your comments from YouTube, fact-checked and answered. First up, one viewer wants to know why the suspect in Charlie Kirk's killing is not facing terrorism or hate crime charges. All right, so here's the deal. Under federal law, there's no specific domestic terrorism crime, even if officials call it that. Politico notes that to trigger federal charges, a case usually has to involve federal property, a federal official, or a hate crime based on race, religion, gender, not political beliefs. In this case, Utah prosecutors have charged Tyler Robinson in state court with aggravated murder, which makes him eligible for the death penalty. Plus, he's facing other felonies. A former DOJ official told Politico there's no clear federal crime yet, but if evidence of protective bias emerges, that could change. Hope that helps. A viewer wanted to know why Egypt does not just take in Gazans by just ceding land to the refugees. Egypt's answer is a firm no. President El-Sisi says forcing Gazans into Sinai, which is in northeast Egypt, would erase Palestinian claims to a future state. The Rafah crossing into Egypt remains aid only, not relocation. Egypt and Jordan have both rejected resettlement proposals, warning it would destabilize their countries and undermine a two-state solution. So while Egypt does have territory, the political red line remains clear: no permanent resettlement of throngs of people outside Gaza. And finally, we see your questions about that story we brought you yesterday on bringing back the dodo. This viewer asked, what's the benefit? And could it be dangerous? Colossal Biosciences says it's one step closer, growing pigeon germ cells to eventually create a dodo-like bird. The plan involves using gene-edited chickens as surrogates and eventually reintroducing the offspring into protected reserves in Mauritius, the bird's native habitat in the Indian Ocean. But experts warn this won't be a true dodo, just a generic look-alike. And some scientists argue the buzz around de-extinction may divert money from protecting actual endangered species. The company says dodo chicks could hatch within 5 to 7 years. All right, a bit complicated, but hope that helps. Keep dropping comments, asking questions, and we'll tackle the biggest ones next week. By the way, wake up with your brain already caffeinated. Sign up for our Unbiased Updates newsletter straight to your inbox each morning. Go to san.com/newsletters. Those are your Unbiased Updates for this Friday. We'll see you back here next week. For all of us here at Straight Arrow News, I'm Craig DeGrelli. Have a fantastic weekend.